I used to believe my marriage was ordinary. Not perfect, not magical like the movies, but safe, predictable, honest. I was wrong. Very wrong. If you're listening to my story right now, I want you to understand one thing first. This didn't start with cheating. It started with trust, with love, with me believing I was chosen. My name is Emily Carter, and for 7 years, I was married to Daniel Carter. On paper, we looked like the ideal couple. Middle class home. Weekend grocery trips. Family dinners. Matching coffee mugs that said Mr. and Mrs. like some kind of joke fate was playing on me. Daniel was charming in a quiet way. Not loud, not flashy. He was the kind of man who listened, who nodded when you spoke, who remembered small details. Or at least, I thought he did. We met when I was 26. I had just left a toxic relationship and promised myself I would never be anyone's second choice again. Daniel felt like the opposite of chaos. He felt safe. He proposed after 2 years. I still remember that night. Candlelight, a simple ring. He looked nervous, almost scared, when he asked me to marry him. Emily, he said, his voice trembling, I may not be perfect, but I'll always choose you. Those words sealed my fate. Because now, looking back, I realized something chilling. He never said I was his first choice, but I ignored that feeling. I said yes. I married him. I built my life around him. The first few years were good. Not passionate, but calm. Daniel worked as a financial consultant. I was a school counselor. We talked about kids someday. We hosted dinners. We laughed. But slowly, things changed. Daniel started becoming emotionally distant. Not cold, just absent. He would sit next to me on the couch, scrolling through his phone, smiling at messages he never shared. When I asked, he'd say, work stuff. When I tried to be affectionate, he'd say, I'm tired. I blamed stress. I blamed myself. I even blamed marriage. What I didn't blame was another woman, because I didn't know she existed yet. Or maybe I did. Maybe my heart knew before my mind was ready. There were signs. Daniel stopped making long-term plans with me. Vacations turned into maybe next year. Conversations about kids ended with silence. One night, I asked him directly, Daniel, are you happy with me? He looked at me for a long moment. Too long. Then he smiled. Of course. Why would you ask that? That smile haunted me later. Because it wasn't warmth. It was relief. Like someone dodging a bullet. The real shift happened after his company merged with another firm. That's when she entered our lives. Her name was Rachel Monroe. Daniel mentioned her casually at first. New project manager joined the team. Really sharp. Knows her stuff. I nodded, pretending not to care. Then he mentioned her again. And again. She's single too, he added once, laughing like it was nothing. Complains about dating apps all the time. Something twisted in my stomach. But I smiled. I trusted my husband. I shouldn't have. Soon, Daniel started staying late at work. Meetings, deadlines, client dinners. One night, I called him at 10 p.m. No answer. At 11, he texted, still at office. Don't wait up. I sat alone at the dining table, staring at 2 cold plates of food, feeling stupid for even cooking. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear when he came home. But the most painful part, when he did come home, he didn't even notice. Weeks passed like this, distance growing, silence filling the spaces where love used to live. Then came the comment that changed everything. We were at a friend's anniversary party. Couples everywhere, laughing, dancing. Someone asked Daniel, so, how's married life treating you? He laughed awkwardly and said, it's stable. Stable. Not happy. Not fulfilling. Not loving. Just stable. I felt invisible. On the drive home, I finally snapped. Why do you talk about our marriage like it's a safety net? I asked. Like something you settle for? Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. You're overthinking, he said. You always do that. That sentence shut me up. Because that's what gaslighting sounds like when it wears a familiar face. The truth is, I was already being replaced emotionally. I just didn't know I was the backup plan. A few days later, I found something strange. Daniel left his laptop open on the desk. A message notification popped up. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But I saw one line. If things don't work out, you know I'm here. My heart stopped. I didn't know who sent it. I didn't know who it was for. But deep inside, something whispered a terrifying thought. What if I wasn't the wife? What if I was the option? That night, as I lay next to Daniel, listening to his breathing, one horrifying question echoed in my mind. Was my husband married to me? Or just waiting for someone better to say yes? And that was the night I decided to find out the truth, a truth that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Because I had no idea that I was living inside someone else's backup plan. And the real game hadn't even begun yet. Conflict begins. After that message burned itself into my mind, sleep became impossible. I lay next to Daniel every night, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how a man could sleep so peacefully while slowly erasing his wife from his life. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because deep down, I was afraid of the answer. Instead, I started observing. Quietly, carefully, like someone living with a stranger who only looked like her husband. Daniel changed his phone password. He started showering the moment he came home, like he needed to wash something away. He stopped asking about my day, and when I talked, he nodded. But his eyes were always somewhere else. One evening, I tested him. Daniel, I said casually, do you remember our anniversary next month? He froze for half a second, then smiled. Of course I do. What day is it? I asked. Silence. Just 2 seconds, but 2 seconds too many. The 18th, he guessed. It was the 16th. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile. Right. That was the moment I realized something painful. I was no longer the woman he was trying to impress. I was the woman he assumed would always stay. The backup. A week later, he mentioned Rachel again. We might have to travel together for a client meeting, he said, not even looking at me. Out of town. Just one night. I nodded, my throat dry. Okay. That night, I did something I had never done in my entire marriage. I checked his laptop. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type his password. But I guessed it. His old habit of using birthdays. Not mine. Hers. Rachel's birthday. I didn't even know how I knew it was hers. But I did. And when the screen unlocked, my heart sank into my stomach. Emails, chats, shared calendars. Nothing explicit. Nothing sexual. But something far worse. Emotional intimacy. Late-night messages. Jokes I had never heard. Complaints about his marriage stress. One message made my vision blur. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Daniel. In her reply, you chose stability, not love. I closed the laptop like it burned my skin. That was the word again. Stability. I finally understood. I wasn't his dream. I was his safety net. The woman he married because she was reliable, loyal, predictable. And Rachel? She was the risk he still wanted. The next day, I confronted him carefully. Daniel, I said while making dinner, do you ever feel like you settled? He laughed nervously. Where is this coming from? I just mean, do you ever think about the life you didn't choose? He stared at me for a long moment, then said something that shattered me. Emily, marriage isn't about passion forever. It's about making smart choices. Smart, like choosing a dependable wife while keeping an emotional escape on the side. I nodded, biting my lips so hard I tasted blood. That night, he booked the trip. The same night, I booked something too. A meeting with myself. I realized something terrifying. Daniel wasn't planning to leave me. Not yet. I was too useful. I paid half the bills, took care of the house, supported his career, made his life easier. I was the woman he could fall back on if things didn't work out with Rachel. And Rachel knew it. That became clear a few days later, when she finally crossed a line. She called our house. I answered. There was a pause on the other end. Then a woman's voice said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was Daniel's private line." My heart pounded. This is his wife. Another pause. Longer. Then she said calmly, "Oh, Emily, right?" She knew my name. "I'm Rachel," she continued. "Daniel's colleague." I waited. She laughed softly. "I just wanted to remind him about the trip tomorrow. I'll let him know," I said, my voice steady. Before hanging up, she added one sentence that destroyed any remaining doubt. "You're lucky to have him," she said. "Some men don't know what they want until they lose it." The line went dead. I stood there shaking. That wasn't a colleague. That was a warning. When Daniel came home, I didn't mention the call. Instead, I kissed him. I smiled. I played the role he expected, because that night, I made a decision. If I was his backup plan, then I would stop being predictable. I would stop being safe. And I would find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. Because one thing was clear now. Daniel wasn't choosing between me and Rachel. He was keeping me. until she chose him. And I wasn't going to wait quietly anymore. But what I didn't know yet was that the truth waiting for me was far worse than cheating. It was a plan, and I was never meant to win it. Betrayal revealed. The night Daniel left for his business trip, I watched him pack like a stranger. He folded his shirts carefully, chose his cologne, checked his phone every few minutes. Not once did he ask if I'd miss him. "Call me when you land," I said softly. "Of course," he replied, distracted. He kissed my forehead, not my lips, and walked out the door. That kiss told me everything. The moment his car disappeared, I sat down on the bed and let the tears come. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears soaked into the pillow of a marriage that was already dying. But grief didn't last long, because grief turned into clarity, and clarity turned into determination. I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I followed him, not physically, digitally. Daniel had forgotten something important, his old tablet, the one synced to his accounts, the one he assumed I'd never touch. My hands were steady this time as I turned it on. Messages began pouring in. "Rachel, did you tell her? I hate lying, but this is temporary. Once things are settled, we can be together properly." My heart pounded. Settled? Together properly? Then I saw the message that made me physically sick. From Daniel to Rachel, "I just need time. Emily is reliable. I can't just leave until I'm sure. If things don't work out between us, at least I won't be alone." I dropped the tablet. Reliable. Not loved. Not cherished. Reliable, like a backup generator. Like a spare tire. Like something you keep around in case the real thing fails. That was the moment my marriage officially ended. But the betrayal didn't stop there. As I scrolled further back, I discovered something even worse. They had been talking before we got married. Rachel wasn't new. She was unfinished business. She was the woman he loved, but didn't choose because she was too unpredictable. And I was the woman he married because I was safe. One message dated just weeks before our wedding read, "Rachel, are you really going to marry her? Daniel. She's the smart choice. You and I, we're complicated. Rachel. So she's your insurance policy? Daniel. I guess you could say that. Insurance policy. That word echoed in my head like a gunshot. I wasn't just a backup. I was a strategy. My hands trembled as I realized the depth of his manipulation. He never stopped loving Rachel. He just parked me in his life to avoid being alone if she walked away. I felt humiliated, used, disposable. That night, Rachel posted a photo on social media. 2 wine glasses, a hotel balcony, city lights, no faces. But I recognized the watch on the table. Daniel's watch. The one I bought him for his birthday. The comments were full of heart emojis. I didn't cry this time. I smiled. Because now I knew the full truth. And once you see the truth clearly, you stop being weak. The next morning, Daniel called. "Hey," he said casually. "Meeting ran late. Might not be able to talk much today." I laughed softly. "Oh, that's okay," I replied. "Enjoy your trip." There was a pause. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Perfect," I said. And I meant it. Because while he was busy pretending I didn't exist, I was planning my escape and my revenge. I started documenting everything. Screenshots, messages, dates, times. Not for a fight, for leverage. I met with a lawyer quietly. I checked our joint accounts. And that's when I uncovered the final, most devastating betrayal. Daniel had been saving money. Not for us. For her. A separate account. Regular transfers. Thousands of dollars. Labeled as future plans. Future plans that didn't include me. I sat in my car outside the bank, staring at the statement, laughing through tears. He wasn't just emotionally cheating. He was preparing to leave me. Only if Rachel said yes. That night, he came home. He looked relaxed. Happy. Lighter. Rachel had chosen him. I could see it in his eyes. We sat at the dinner table, and for the first time in weeks, he spoke gently. "Emily," he said, clearing his throat. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. Here it comes," I thought. "I think we've grown apart," he continued. "Maybe we rushed into marriage. Maybe we both deserve something. More aligned. More aligned." Not honest enough to say her name. I nodded calmly. "You're right," I said. He looked surprised. "You agree?" "Yes," I smiled. "I think you should be with the woman you really want." His face went pale. "How did you?" "I know everything," I said softly. Silence filled the room. And for the first time since I married him, Daniel looked afraid. But fear came too late. because he didn't realize something crucial. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. And I wasn't going to walk away empty-handed. Because while he was planning a future with her, I was about to destroy the plan that made me his backup. And he had no idea what I was about to do next. Turning point. Daniel sat across from me, his mouth opening and closing like he wanted to explain himself. But no words came out. The man who had carefully planned 2 lives suddenly had no script. "You went through my things?" he finally asked, his voice shaking. I leaned back in my chair, calm, almost amused. "You went through my life, Daniel. I think we're even." He rubbed his temples. "It's not what you think." I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. "You called me your insurance policy. Your backup. What exactly do you think I think?" That's when his mask finally cracked. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I just didn't want to end up alone." There it was. Not love. Fear. "So you married me," I said slowly. "Not because you loved me, but because you were scared Rachel wouldn't commit." He didn't deny it. That silence was louder than any confession. "She was always unsure," he admitted. "In and out of my life. You were stable. Kind. You wanted a future. And she didn't? She wanted freedom," he said. "But now she's ready." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "And what about me?" I asked. "What do I get after 7 years of being your safety net?" He swallowed. "I'll make sure you're taken care of." Taken care of. Like a liability. I slid a folder across the table. He stared at it. "What's this?" "Your messages. Your financial transfers. Your plans," I said. "My lawyer loved them." His face drained of color. "You went to a lawyer?" he whispered. 3 weeks ago," I replied. "Right after you booked that trip." He stood up abruptly. "Emily, let's not do this the hard way." I raised an eyebrow. "The hard way? You mean the way where your perfect image collapses?" He froze. "Because Daniel cared about one thing more than love. Reputation. Your firm has strict policies about employee conduct," I continued calmly. "Especially when it involves misuse of company travel and funds." "What are you saying?" he snapped. "I'm saying Rachel wasn't just a secret," I replied. "She was your subordinate." His knees hit the chair behind him as he sat down. "You wouldn't," he said. "I would," I answered. "And I will, if you don't listen carefully." For the first time in our marriage, Daniel listened. "You will not paint me as the villain who grew apart from you," I said. "You will not drain our accounts. You will not rush into a clean divorce while I walk away with nothing." "What do you want?" he asked quietly. The question felt powerful. "I want fairness," I said. "I want half of everything. I want the house sold. I want my name cleared. And I want this done without lies." "And Rachel?" he asked cautiously. I smiled. "She gets the truth," I said, "the same way I did." He looked confused. The next morning, I sent one message. "To Rachel. We need to talk. Woman to woman." She replied within minutes. "Daniel said you already know. I didn't mean for it to hurt you." I invited her to a cafe. She arrived confident, well-dressed, smiling politely, like someone who believed she had already won. "You're stronger than I expected," she said, stirring her coffee. "Most women would be screaming." "I screamed already," I replied. "Just not where you could hear." She sighed. "Daniel told me you were practical." There it was again. Practical, stable. Back up. "You know," I said softly. "He told me he loved you." Her smile widened. "He does." "He told me he married me because he was afraid you wouldn't commit," I continued. Her smile faded. "He told me you were unpredictable," I added. "That you might leave him once you got bored." Her hand tightened around the cup. "He told me," I finished, "that if things didn't work out with you, at least he wouldn't be alone." Silence. That's when Rachel finally understood. She wasn't the prize. She was the risk, and I said, meeting her eyes, was the insurance. She stood up slowly. "You're lying." I slid my phone across the table. Screenshots. Dates. Words he never meant her to see. Rachel's face collapsed. "He promised me he chose me," she whispered. "He didn't," I replied. "He chose himself." She left without another word. That afternoon, Daniel called me 23 times. I didn't answer, because the power had shifted. He had lost control of the narrative, lost control of both women. And that night, as I sat alone in the house that no longer felt like a prison, I realized something incredible. I wasn't his backup anymore. I was his consequence. But the final act of this story was still waiting, and it would change all of our lives forever. The night everything finally collapsed, it didn't happen with shouting or violence. It happened quietly, like the sound of a house settling after a fire. It was close to midnight when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was sitting on the couch in my pajamas, a blanket around my shoulders, scrolling through job listings in another city. For the first time in years, I was planning a life that didn't include Daniel. When the bell rang again, longer this time, my heart didn't race. I already knew. I opened the door slowly. Daniel stood there, looking nothing like the man I had married. His hair was messy. His eyes were swollen and red. His expensive suit jacket was missing, and his tie hung loosely around his neck like he didn't care anymore. "She left," he said, his voice breaking. I didn't ask who. Rachel had finally chosen herself. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other. 7 years of marriage, reduced to silence on a cold doorstep. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside. He walked into the house like a stranger. Not confidently, not comfortably, like someone visiting a place they no longer had any right to be in. He looked around, as if seeing the living room for the first time, the photos on the wall, the furniture we chose together, the life he treated like a waiting room. He sat down heavily on the couch. "She saw everything," he said. "The messages, the bank account, the things I said about her, about you." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. And she said I never loved anyone but myself," he whispered. I nodded. "She's not wrong." He buried his face in his hands. "I lost her. I lost everything." I watched him carefully. Even now, even after everything, I noticed something important. He wasn't crying because he hurt me. He was crying because his plan failed. "I never thought she'd walk away," he said. I thought once she knew I was free, she'd stay." I finally spoke. "You thought wrong." He looked up at me, desperation all over his face. "Emily, please. I made a terrible mistake." "No," I said calmly. "You made several very calculated decisions." I was confused. He insisted. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I shook my head slowly. 7 years of lies isn't confusion, Daniel. It's commitment to deception. He stood up suddenly and walked toward me. "I choose you," he said. "I should have chosen you from the beginning." That sentence hit me differently than he expected. I laughed. Not hysterically, not bitterly, just clearly. "You're choosing me now because you ran out of options," I said. "That's not love. That's panic." He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "We can fix this," he said. "We can start over. Therapy, a vacation, whatever you want." I looked at him and realized something shocking. I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no sadness. Just clarity. "You don't fix a marriage by replacing one woman with another," I said softly. "You fix it by telling the truth from the beginning. And you never did." He sank back onto the couch. "So that's it?" he asked. 7 years gone?" "They were gone long before tonight," I replied. "I just didn't know it." I walked to the drawer, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on the table in front of him. Divorce papers. His hands shook as he opened them. "You already filed?" he asked. "Yes." "You didn't even wait?" "I waited 7 years," I said. "That was enough." He looked up at me, eyes full of regret. "I never meant for you to be the backup." "But you did," I replied. "An intention doesn't erase impact." The divorce process was nothing like I imagined. There were no dramatic courtroom scenes, no screaming matches, just paperwork, cold facts, evidence. Daniel tried to negotiate at first, tried to delay, tried to charm, but the messages spoke louder than his excuses. The separate savings account, the timeline, the emotional affair that predated our wedding. In the end, the settlement was fair. Half the house, half the savings. No lies. His workplace launched an internal investigation. He wasn't fired, but his fast-track promotion disappeared overnight. Rachel resigned quietly before HR could make things worse. And suddenly, the man who always had a backup plan had none. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I moved. New city, new job, new apartment with big windows and quiet mornings. The first night alone, I didn't feel lonely. I felt light. One evening, while unpacking boxes, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "I think about you every day. Daniel." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I missed him, but because I finally understood him. Daniel didn't miss me. He missed stability, routine, being chosen without earning it. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Some lessons don't need closure. They need boundaries. Today, when I look back, I don't feel ashamed. I feel proud. Because I learned the truth that ruined his perfect plan. A woman who knows her worth is never someone's backup. She is not a safety net, not an insurance policy, not a second option. She is the choice. And if she isn't chosen, she walks away and becomes the consequence. Tian,